Mau ini deh apa? Ada pesta di kampung ya?
Betul, Prof. Prof, izin kita mulai, Prof ya. Sudah jam 10, Prof.
Silakan.
Baik. Pak Dewi, silakan Pak Dewi, jam 10. Berat di kampung, Prof.
Mau ini deh apa? Ada
뭐라고 썼어요? 한글이? 네? 한글이 나오던데 회의가? 이만큼.
Dewi, all participants will be mute during the seminar.
Okay, so I will start this.
Yes.
A very good morning, everyone. First, please let me greet the university executives in the conferences, Rector of Universitas Tarumanagara, Professor Agustinus Punahirawan, our faculty's dean, Professor Ahmad Sudiro, all the distinguished speakers in these conferences, the moderator and chairman of the committee, Dr. Ahmad Reddy, along with the boards of the committee and all the participants. Welcome to the Tarumanagara International Conference Program 2020. My name is Lewi Andi, and it is my utmost pleasure to be the host of this event. The idea of aviation law is not new at all, taking into account all the rapid technology developments in the past years. However, the recent unexpected COVID-19 outbreaks has brought us to the unprecedented circumstances. The aviation worldwide has lost more than 50% of the passengers since the beginning of 2020, entailed with the economic loss by more than 300 million overall. This phenomenon has drawn our attention at Universitas Tarumanagara, and we proudly present post-COVID-19 global, regional, and national aviation paradigm to be our main topic of discussion today. We have invited some of the best scholars around the world to discuss the topic further based on the area. They are Professor Ludwig Weber, Professor Anis Batrek-Teravik, Professor Stephen Hope, Professor Do Hwan Kim, and Professor Martono. We believe that today's discussion will be very handy to all legal scholars and practitioners. We therefore air this event not solely on the current Zoom platform, but also on our official account at FH UNTAR Officials. Before we start with our opening remarks, please allow us to introduce our university through the following short video. Mr. Rian, please.
이게 이제 이 대학 소개하는데.
Delivering small steps towards bigger dreams that become true. Inspired by Tarumanagara Kingdom, which prospered the people. As one of the oldest private universities, Universitas Tarumanagara has always forged the students. 8 faculties in Universitas Tarumanagara, with 29 study programs, including master and doctorate programs. We are ready to bolster the spirit to win the future that is getting tougher. We build today to win the future. Currently, Universitas Tarumanagara has more than 1,000 highly qualified lecturers who take part in forming students to have strong and positive nature. Untaria. To take the chance to work as a team, to take the risk for the greatest achievements and still respect others. To develop practical side of the knowledge with modern practical experience, making creativity an important role in creation and innovation. To create a generation of leaders with integrity, professionals with entrepreneurship spirit is our commitment. The future is yours to define. Universitas Tarumanagara.
Now, before we proceed, please allow me to invite the Rector of Universitas Tarumanagara, Professor Agustinus Purna Irawan, to deliver a welcoming address to all speakers and participants. Prof. Agustinus, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Levi.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
총장이야, 총장.
Thank you for inviting me to this seminar. It is a pleasure to be here to deliver a speech and open this international seminar. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Professor Dr. Anis from International Institute for Middle East and Balkan Studies, Slovenia, Professor Dr. Weber from McGill University, Professor Dr. Stephen Hope from University of Cologne, Professor Dr. Du Wan Kim from Institute of Air and Space Law, AeroHealth, and Professor Dr. Matono from Faculty of Law Universitas Tarumanagara for being here with us today. Welcome to today's seminar with a great topic about how post-COVID-19 may impact the global, regional, and national aviation paradigm. This is such an interest topic because we know that this pandemic affects every sector, including aviation. It's the right time to discuss for a solution because now we are facing the new normal era and every country needs to embrace what may change after the rebound. We are lucky to be here with the experts to bring new insight to overcome every oncoming situation that may happen. I hope the discussion in this seminar will give rise to breakthroughs that contribute to safer and healthier air transport for everyone. Thank you for collaboration of universities from many countries. I hope this collaboration will continue in the future. To all of my fellow students or participants, I hope you enjoy today's discussion and don't forget to keep your opinion and question at the end of webinars. Finally, by raising our gratitude to the one Almighty God, I officially open this seminar. Thank you very much for your attention and contribution. Have a nice online seminar. Thank you.
Thank you for the remarkable speech, Prof. Agustinus. Now, without further ado, it is time for us to proceed to the main event. We have one of our senior lecturers in our law faculty, Ms. Vera Weni Sumarwi, who will be acting as our moderator and leading our discussion today. And it is my pleasure to pass the discussion to her. So please, Ms. Vera, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Levy. Good morning, our honorable discussion attendee who joined the webinar international seminar about the post-COVID global, regional, and national aviation paradigm. Please allow me to start with the introduction briefly, the curriculum vitae of the honorable discussions. For those of you who are interested in getting more detail about discussions, I suggest you may download them on the link that will be announced by the committee. Since the limitations of time we have, I ask the discussions to deliver the material for 20 minutes. Please allow me to remind all of the honorable discussions the allocation of time given by the committee. I will introduce the first speaker, Professor Dr. Ludwig Weber. He is a senior advisor of International Civil Aviation Organization, adjunct professor, McGill University, Montreal, Canada. Prof. Weber is a member of board, Institute of Air and Space Law Center for Research, McGill University. He has lectured and published widely, and he is a member of numerous professional associations. Now, Professor Ludwig Weber is an advisor to Secretary General of International Civil Aviation Organization in Canada. I will invite the first speaker, Professor Dr. Ludwig, to express his opinion. Your time is 20 minutes, please, Professor Ludwig Weber.
Thank you, Ms. Vera Sovervi, for your kind introduction. Professor Agustinus Purna Ivan, Rector of Tarumanagara University, Dr. Ahmad Sudiro, Dean of the Faculty of Law of the University, distinguished members of the organizing committee, of which Professor Sudiro is the chairman, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure this morning, Jakarta time, evening Montreal time, to participate in your very timely conference on the subject of post-COVID-19 and civil aviation. As you will see, this COVID-19 pandemic has had profound impact on both international and domestic aviation in many, many countries. And therefore, it's a very timely event for your university to organize. And I'd like to congratulate you on that. My topic in the framework of the conference is the global aspects related to ICAO. And other speakers will cover regional and national aspects. So I will take you through a number of items under this topic. Firstly, the impact on civil aviation, on global civil aviation of the pandemic. Secondly, the recently released ICAO CARD report and its recommendations. A report which was published in June of this year. Thirdly, I will talk about IATA and ACI contributions. I will talk about the new ICAO COVID-19 handbook, which has also been issued very recently. I will talk about the global arrangement for public health issues in civil aviation called CAPSCA. And finally, I will talk about the need for a new approach for CAPSCA in cases of pandemics of the type we are dealing with. I will now share the screen. And I hope you can see my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I will put on the slideshow so you can, okay. So this is the topic of my presentation, global aspects related to ICAO. I have already taken you through the 6 subjects I'm going to discuss. Firstly, the impact of the pandemic on global aviation. According to ICAO estimates, the overall decline of passenger traffic will be between 44 and 59% in 2020 compared with 2019. There will also be a decline of between 2.247 and 2.915 million passengers. That is to say 2.25 to 2.9 billion passengers globally. On the side of the airlines, there will be a loss of airline operating revenues of between 297 and 384 billion US dollars. On 21 April 2020, 46% of the global commercial aircraft fleet was parked. That is to say, approximately 17,000 out of approximately 26,000 commercial aircraft. So that means nearly 2/3 of aviation was down. And that is not only international, but is also domestic. This table compiled by OAG gives you an idea about the profound impact. The first line, and I hope the figures are big enough for you to see them, shows the overall global reduction in scheduled flights year over year from 2019 to 2020. And you can see here that up to 8 June of this year, there was an overall downward reduction of 46.8%. So minus 64.8% was the reduction in global scheduled flights. And that tallies with the minus 64% of all the global commercial aircraft being parked. Among the states that you see on the left side, the state most affected was Singapore, with a reduction of 95.4%. The state least affected was China, even though the pandemic started there, but because of its sizable domestic market, of course, it was the state least affected with minus 21.2%. Here you see all the parked aircraft on one of the busiest airports of the world. The basic provision in the Chicago Convention, which deals with pandemics and deals with the prevention of spread of disease, is Article 14. And this provision recognizes the vector function of civil aviation for the spread of disease. And it says each contracting state agrees to take effective measures to prevent the spread by means of air navigation of cholera, typhus, smallpox, yellow fever, plague, and such other communicable diseases. And of course, COVID-19 falls within that notion, as the contracting states shall from time to time decide to designate. And to that end, contracting states will keep in close consultation with the agencies concerned. And thus, this provision establishes the principles of collaboration and consultation among states. On that basis, ICAO has formed a working group, and in fact, it's a working group of the ICAO Council, the ICAO's governing body. And this is the Council Aviation Recovery Task Force, abbreviated CART, which was set up in April 2020 and was chaired by France. This body has worked in close cooperation with IATA, ACI, and 4 other international organizations and the industry. And it produced a report and 10 recommendations, which were published in a joint press conference of these participating organizations at ICAO premises on 2 June 2020. This group elaborated a number of conclusions and recommendations. We will not have time to go through all of them, but the most important ones I have summarized here. And the first recommendation of the CART report is that states should manage COVID-19 risks similar to aviation safety and security risks. And that means by applying the so-called safety management system, and of course in security we have the security management system. These are systems, management systems, which take a risk-based approach and which involve a documented process for managing and mitigating risks. The report also recommends to distinguish restart from recovery. Restart is, of course, re-establishing connectivity, including temporary measures, whereas recovery deals with measures to support the connectivity on a sustainable basis. It also involves mitigating evolving risks. Finally, the report recommends that there should be support financial relief strategies. And this addresses itself both to states and to financial institutions, who should consider the need to provide direct or indirect support particularly to the industry. And this can, of course, take the form of direct state aids. And we know that already a number of states have decided to give direct state aids to their operators. It can also, of course, include taking a participation in the capital, and this has also happened already, or to provide loans or other favorable arrangements which provide the industry with financial support. My next point concerns IATA and ACI as organizations that have contributed to the report. And here we have an IATA paper on restarting aviation following COVID-19. The main points in the paper concern the risk of in-flight transmission, which in the IATA paper is expressed as being considered low. However, we know from a number of studies that this is very controversial. At least one international study has evaluated the risk of in-flight transmission as high. Then there is the issue of the empty middle seat. Initially, there were recommendations to leave middle seats empty while the pandemic is on. However, IATA considers that this is commercially not sustainable. And therefore, the CART report has not included that recommendation to leave empty middle seats, has not included that recommendation. Finally, it points out the role of the so-called HEPA filters on board, which filter the air on board. And here the commitment of the industry is to use filters which are able to filter out the virus of COVID-19. There is also the issue of temperature screening at departure and arrival, and symptom screening, as well as health auto declaration. Both of these measures have only limited use because of the phenomenon of the asymptomatic persons who are infected but do not show any symptoms. Therefore, the paper recommends a multi-layered approach with use of masks on board and protective equipment, both in terminal and on board. Physical distancing, as well as in the terminal and on board, cleaning and disinfection. And then two other measures are mentioned, antibody testing and immunity passports. But because of the controversial question whether a person having recovered from COVID develops immunity or not, both of these measures are also of questionable use. I now come to the ICAO handbook on COVID-19, document 10144, which was released on 27 April of this year. This is an ICAO handbook not for the operators, but for the civil aviation administrations on the management of aviation safety risks related to COVID-19. And here we have to remember that it is actually the civil aviation administrations which are responsible for authorizing entry of operators to the market and restart of operations on conditions that are usually jointly agreed with the public health authorities of the countries concerned. The main approach in the ICAO handbook is to apply the SMS, the safety management system, which I already mentioned, to apply that SMS methodology to COVID-19 risks, similar as if COVID-19 presented a safety risk in the classic sense. The handbook also developed the so-called PDCA cycle for managing aviation safety risks during the pandemic. And this PDA cycle consists basically in a cycle of plan, act, and check in relation to the risk mitigation in order to gradually be able to deal with unknown risks related to COVID-19. The handbook also deals with the challenges that are faced at different pandemic stages, namely the fact that the pandemic may recur from a first wave to a second wave and possibly a third wave, all things which involve a number of unknown factors. It deals with the identification, collection, and analysis of all relevant and available data. I have already mentioned the application of SMS, and it recommends that the restart of operation should be based on a combination of emergency response plans, which of course all operators have in place, and the management of change procedures. For further details, I refer you to the handbook, which has actually been published in its main contents on the ICAO website. I now come to the role of the collaborative arrangement for the prevention and management of public health events, also called CAPSCA. This arrangement is an ICAO global program to improve the preparedness, planning, and response to public health events affecting civil aviation. It was established in 2007 jointly through initiative of ICAO and the World Health Organization with numerous partner organizations. It provides public health planning and assistance and has been very useful in helping to contain the Ebola, H1N1 flu, and Zika outbreaks, as well as in the context of the Fukushima nuclear accident. Here you see the partner organizations that are involved in the CAPSCA program, and you see also the aircraft flying with a mask. The main contribution of this program is the prevention and containment of the vector role of civil aviation, because we have to remember that nowadays a pandemic spreads very much through passengers which are infected and which are flown by airlines to other countries. And so civil aviation has, unfortunately, an important vector role. In the Middle Ages, with the bubonic plague, it was maritime, it was the shipping. Nowadays, it's civil aviation. And this vector role was nefarious in the SARS, H1N1, and now in the COVID pandemics. Unfortunately, in the COVID-19 case, the emphasis of states was on point of destination measures, namely temperature checks at arrival, health declarations at arrival, quarantine on arrival, and border closures. But in my considered opinion, more work should be done on point of origin containment measures. And you can see that when you look at the spread of COVID on 31 January 2020, when it was still very much contained in China, and of course we know it originated in Wuhan, and at that time it had not really spread. This is the same picture on 2nd July 2020, and by that time the infection had spread everywhere. Therefore, the proposal is that CAPSCA should develop a mechanism to ban air travel departure from airports in regions suffering from the start of outbreak of a virus. This is what we would call a departure quarantine. So there should not be really the emphasis on an arrival quarantine, but on departure quarantine. There should be also clear criteria for triggering such a departure travel ban to be agreed among states in advance. And the departure quarantine should be implemented at the earliest possible stage. And you might remember for the tsunamis in the South Pacific and Southeast Asia region, we have a tsunami early warning system. So the principle should also be applied here. There should be an early warning mechanism when a pandemic is about to break out. And it should be on the basis of such an early warning system agreed in advance by states that a departure quarantine should be imposed. Conclusions of my presentation: the impact of the pandemic on civil aviation is major. Although more than 50% of the global commercial fleet is now back in operation, some major manufacturers estimate a recovery in 2021 at only 70%. So it is not only, if those estimates are correct, it will not only affect aviation in 2020, but beyond. ICAO recommends to the civil aviation authorities the application of the safety management system and the PDCA cycle to COVID-19 issues. And finally, CAPSCA should develop a departure airport quarantine mechanism based on early warning to prevent future pandemics. This brings us to the end of my presentation, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Prof. Weber. So I will not deliver the conclusion since Professor Weber has delivered the conclusions. I may continue to the second speaker, Professor Dr. Stephen Hope. Professor Dr. Stephen Hope is a professor of Germany Public Law, European Law, and Public International Law. He's a doctor. He's a director, Institute of Air and Space Law, University of Cologne, Albertus Magnus Platt, Germany. Besides that, he has many activities as a professor and author of many books. I will invite the third speaker, Professor Dr. Stephen Hope, to express your opinions. Your time is 20 minutes, please, Professor Stephen Hope. I will not remind you if the time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed for this very friendly introduction. Good morning to everybody, or good afternoon. Here in Germany, it's still very early in the morning, but that doesn't hinder us to participate in this conference. I first of all want to greet all the celebrities, and I'm very, very grateful for all the celebrities having made so friendly introduction to the seminar. Secondly, I want to congratulate you that you have done this very timely effort to discuss the COVID-19 crisis and its impact on civil aviation. I think it's really worthwhile, and already the very interesting words from Professor Weber show how important that is. My task is to go to the regional level, the regional European level, and I would kindly ask to switch to the next slide. That shows the outline of my presentation. I will briefly first outline what the impact of COVID-19 was on European air transport. Professor Weber has shown the worldwide impacts. I will focus on the regional impacts, some facts and data, reactions from the airline industry, and then particularly, and that will be the focus of my presentation, go to the measures adopted by the European Union before I then more focus on critical matters such as slot regulation, passenger protection, and state aid, which brings me to some conclusions. Please, next slide. This is the overall impact of COVID-19 to European air transport. And of course, the situation is not better as it was worldwide. You see, there is an unprecedented paralysis of intra-EU air traffic. You may know for that we have an absolutely open European aviation market. There is no prohibition of cabotage anymore. The prohibition of cabotage is abandoned due to the basic freedoms of the countries of the European Union. These are 27, still the United Kingdom, but they go out. We have a free market, which basically means that all carriers, be they flag carriers, be they low costers, can start wherever they want if they can afford it. So that even foreign air carriers, that is the situation of cabotage, can go in the country and fly routes within the country. So it is probably the most liberalized system, which was done at the end of the 1980s, early 1990s, through the European Commission and the European Council that we have in Europe. And this has almost completely collapsed. You see, we had a coming down of 89% in April 2020, still this month of 85%. There are first signs of recovery that may come in fall 2020 and the first month of 2021, which still an average of 25 to 30% less traffic compared to the year before. That is exactly also what Professor Weber has said for worldwide. There was, and this was the first important thing, a closure of the EU borders and a stop to air services from and to extra EU countries. The European Commission, which is the EU bureaucracy, so to speak, the ministers, recently urged member states to ease flight and travel restrictions within 1st July 2020. All member states have imposed travel and migration restrictions in the month of March, April, and May, and this is going to be softly released now. Several measures have been adopted at the European level to support the industry and mitigate the social economic and operational repercussions of the pandemic. There we are in this phase now where a soft switch towards, improvement of air traffic is about to happen. The next slide shows you, by comparison, how the situation in Europe was on the 31st March last year, 2019, and as compared to the right slide, 29 March 2020. And you see, of course, the sky is dark in 2020, whereas it was enlightened in 2019. That shows you there has something considerably changed. The next slide. Here you see that as of 12 June 2020, there were some COVID-19 restrictions already a bit lifted in some countries. You see the brighter parts here in Middle, Central, and Northern Europe as compared to other countries, that still have some restrictions. Please, next slide. Now, what were reactions from the airline industry? Most EU airlines grounded a large number of aircraft, as for example, Lufthansa or British Airways, or even the whole fleet, as with low costers like Ryanair, EasyJet, Swiss and Air France. The International Air Traffic Association estimates a total financial loss of 768 billion euro, and roughly estimated that's the same. It's a bit more in US dollars, perhaps 850 billion US dollars, with the Spain, Italy, France, and the United Kingdom being the hardest impacted markets. Airlines have been forced to suspend a large amount of employees and crew members due to the unprecedented fall in demand and operation. There have also been talks concerning significant job mass redundancies and workforce cuts, at least concerning Virgin Atlantic, Lufthansa, Air France, Ryanair. IATA forecasts indicate the risk of around 20 million job cuts globally. Individual airlines and industry associations like IATA actively urged the European Commission to adopt several measures to respond to the emergency as concerns slot allocation and regulation, and particularly state aid. And that will be also one of the major focus in my further speech. Please, next slide. Thank you. Well, let's go first to slot allocation. On 13 March, the European Commission has adopted a proposal regulation to ease the EU airport slot requirements. This was to counterbalance the potential efforts of the use it or lose it rule, whereby air carriers must use at least 80% of their allocated slots within a given schedule and period, summer or winter, in order to keep precedence and respect of the same series of slots. We call this the so-called grandfathering. And of course, this was not possible anymore, and there had something to happen. Secondly, the basic regulation of the working of the liberalization of EU air transport is Regulation 1008 of 2008. And on 29 April 2020, the Commission has adopted a proposal regulation to ease some requirements as provided in Regulation 1008 of 2008. The amendments to this regulation specifically pertain to the licensing of EU carriers, a suspension of the obligation to demonstrate financial viability for the next 12 months. So if you want to be relicensed, normally you must show your financial viability, and this is of course at stake at the moment. Secondly, the modification to rules concerning revocation or suspension of traffic rights, which can now be revoked or suspended without 14 days notice due to the health emergency. And finally, ground handling, a simpler and more efficient contractual negotiation and prolongation of all contracts to December 2021. Next slide, please. Thank you. Then furthermore to air cargo operations. On 20 March 2020, the Commission has issued operational guidelines in order to facilitate cargo operations during the COVID-19 outbreak. Passenger protection and flight cancellation. This is the famous EU Regulation 261 of 2004. On 13 May 2020, the Commission has issued a recommendation concerning the airline practice of offering vouchers to passengers whose flights have been cancelled due to COVID-19. This is currently a major discussion in Europe, how much airlines can compensate by vouchers, or whether and in how far passengers are entitled to get money back. And then, of course, most importantly, rules concerning state aid. On 19 March 2020, the Commission has adopted a temporary framework for state aid measures to support the EU economy during and post-pandemic, allowing for exemptions and non-application of state aid rules under certain circumstances. I will explain this a bit later. Please continue, next slide. Thank you. Well, the European Aviation Safety Agency, situated, headquartered in Cologne, has issued a health safety protocol. It adopted guidelines and measures for travelers and operators. These include, for example, temperature screening at airport facilities, the obligation to wear face masks, and the obligation to disinfect aircraft. Then on crew licensing, training, and flight time limitation, for more simple procedures and exemptions relating to cabin crew and pilot training, qualification, and licensing. And drone regulations, that was the big thing for EASA to do. The application of the new drone regulation 947 of 2019 has been postponed by 6 months from June 2020 to January 2021. Next slide, please. Now we come to some critical measures. First, as concerns slot regulation. The normal regulatory framework is Regulation 95/93 on common rules for the allocation of slots at community airports. I should explain that the regulation is the normal, one of the normal legal regulatory mechanisms within Europe. The Commission prepares such regulations, and Parliament as well as Council adopt them. And they are applicable in the member states, and all member states. According to the Regulation 95/93, airlines are obliged to use at least 80% of their takeoff and landing slots in order to maintain the right to use them in the following year. This is the famous grandfathering. The vertiginous and unprecedented fall in operations raised the issue of slots, as by non-operating for months, airlines were at risk to lose control of their slots. So the EU adopted a waiver and suspended the application of this requirement until 24 October 2020. The waiver applies from 1st March to 24 October for all flights from and to the EU, and retroactively also in the period 23 January to 29 February for flights between EU and China, Hong Kong. Next slide, please. passenger protection, flight cancellation, an unprecedented immense number of flight cancellations. The EU airlines have offered passenger monetary vouchers worth the total price paid for the flight to be used in a time window of 12 months. The EU Commission has published its interpretive guidelines on EU passenger rights in the situation of COVID-19, underlining that customers shall be offered the choice between a monetary voucher and the full reimbursement of the ticket price. That was the big issue. A group of more than 12 countries, for example, Germany, Portugal, Poland, Belgium, have asked the EU Commission to amend Regulation 261 of 2004 so as to temporarily allow the issuance of vouchers during the health and financial crisis, simply because they were short on cash. The EU is likely to provide a revised version of the regulation in the future, which is a long-awaited project. The EU's position in the field of passenger rights is usually pro-consumers. So it can be expected that they might react that way. Next slide. Now, the most important, state aid. And normally, the European legal system is very critical about state aid because we want competition by economic power of the company and not by the strength of countries if they pump money into the airlines. But what about the situation in COVID? There were huge financial losses we have seen that have called for public and state intervention in order to rescue most EU airlines which are currently in need of liquidity injection and financial support. IATA urged governments to provide loans, direct support and taxation relief in order to support the industry and to preserve millions of jobs. Commission Communication 2020 C91 established a temporary framework for state aid measures to support the economy in the current COVID-19 outbreak, which shows, and this is the most important point, the general non-application of competition rules for aid granted until 31st December this year. State aid will be compatible with the internal market of the EU. The airline benefiting from state aid should not have been in prior financial difficulties. So they must have become, deficitarian and in trouble because of COVID. The maximum of 800 million euro direct grants, but amount can be much larger if it includes tax benefits and credit instruments. Next slide. Well, you can see here 9.8 billion bailout to Lufthansa. The German government has given this huge credit to Lufthansa, 7.7 billion to KLM Air France with the French and Dutch government. Alitalia was put under state ownership in mid-March 2020. Europe in a total 455 million to Swedish airlines by the Swedish government. As a general rule, financial support is linked to conditions, time conditions, purpose, preservation of jobs. Competitor airlines such as Ryanair and EasyJet, low-costers, have announced that they will challenge the grant of financial aid before the EU Commission, as they must largely exceed the need to cover payroll costs and strongly impact on fair competition between airlines. I expect these things to go before the European Court of Justice. The state aid matter is a delicate one, combining economic and political elements. Depending on the duration of the health and economic emergency, the matter is still likely to evolve with even more aid to be granted to airlines. And final one. Next slide. Yes, we come to some conclusions. The situation of the EU aviation industry is still uncertain, as it strongly depends on the duration of the health emergency, as well as on the imposition and relaxation of political measures. The EU has been among the most proactive regions with significant ad hoc interventions, as discussed, designed to support the aviation industry maintain competitiveness, preserve jobs, and ensure connectivity and continuity. There is passenger protection through vouchers and compensation, as well as state aid and compensation between EU airlines that will represent problematic areas, which will witness further policy and regulatory developments in the near future. And finally, the EU has adopted a comprehensive plan for restoration of air services in the EU, which is designed to further implement and give effect to economic measures in the so-called phase 2 and phase 3 of the COVID-19 pandemic. I thank you very much for your attention and thank the charming person who has helped me with the slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Stephen Hope. We just listened the presentation of Professor Stephen Hope. Then next presentations is the third speaker, Professor Do Hwan Kim. He lives in Seoul, the Republic of Korea. He is now honorary president of Korea Society of Air and Space Law and Policy in Seoul, Korea. He is visiting professor of law school, Beijing Institute of Technology and Tianjin University Law School in China. Besides that, he has many activities as legal advisor at Korean government, researchers at many universities in China and India. He also received recently a Global Achiever Awards based on the academic achievement in the field of the International Air and Space Law from the Indian Institute of Oriental Heritage in Calcutta, India on February 2020. I will invite the third speaker, Professor Do Hwan Kim. Professor Do Hwan Kim, your time is 20 minutes. I will not remind you if the time is up, so please keep your minds for the 20 minutes allocation. Thank you very much.
화면 공유해달라고 말씀해 주세요. 해달라고 말씀해 주세요.
I hope that you would like to share my PPT PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
저희 쪽에서 하겠다고 말씀하시면 됩니다.
Yeah. I would like to present my PowerPoint. I would like to, okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Rector, Professor Augustinius Pruma Irwan, and the Dean of Faculty of Law, Taruma University, the Professor Ahmad Studio, and Professor Maltono of Indonesia, who worked hard to organize Video International Conference. From now, I will present my topic entitled Post-COVID-19 Global Regional National Paradigm, mainly Asian Regional for 20 minutes. Consensus of table, introduction, second, the Republic of Korea respond COVID-19 epidemic. Third, Japan responds COVID-19 epidemic. Fourth, China responds COVID-19 epidemic. Fifth, India responds COVID-19 epidemic. Sixth, conclusion. Introduction, COVID-19 impact on Asian Pacific aviation worsens. On May 4, 2020, International Air Transport Association, IATA, released the updated analysis showing that COVID-19 crisis will see the drop of revenue, United States dollar 113 billion in 2020 compared to 2019, and 50% fall in passengers demand in 2020 compared to 2019. the global economy, World Bank is now
저쪽에서 쏴.
okay. 이거 안 돼. 어떻게 된 거야?
Next slide, please.
Okay. South Asia World Bank forecast could see contraction of 2.7% in 2020, and Central Asia a contraction of 4.7%. In the East Asia and the Pacific region, while growth writ large is expected to slow to 0.5%, but take China out of equation and the data adds up to contraction of 1.2% in 2020. China growth expected to slow to 1% this year. For FY 2020, India's economy will contract by 3.2%.
저쪽에서 쏘고 있어서 저희가.
The Republic of Korea respond COVID-19 epidemic. Outline. Currently, it is not possible to ride subway, bus, and trains in Korea without wearing mask. As of July 9, 3 days ago, 2020, the number of total confirmed cases stands at 13,293 infections. That's 287, with the largest cluster of infections detected in Daegu metropolitan city and Gyeongsang province, 76 1 point. The out of infected individual, females account of 59.5%, and the male percent. This area is Daegu metropolitan city. This area occurred coronavirus 19. Next. The CEO conference on response countermeasures COVID-19 epidemic by Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters under the Korean government. Next. Korea's response to COVID-19 epidemic. The Korean government is cooperating actively with the international community by sharing its experience and clinical data regarding COVID-19 to strengthen access to information and share Koreans' COVID-19 experience. The task force recently opened to bulletin board on the Ministry English website, Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Korea. The Korea highly trained healthcare professionals and healthcare institutes are globally recognized for their capability and commitment to the patient. Next. Enforced management of inbound travelers. The special entry procedure inbound travelers from China to Korea were put into operation on February 4, 2020 instead of entry ban, and to ensure through follow-up management for 14 days. This program was applied to all inbound travelers from April 1, 2020 onward, as global outbreaks have continued to rise. All inbound travelers are required to self-isolate for 2 weeks at home or at related facilities. Next. Okay. Japan. Outline. A cursory glance at the statistics might suggest that Japan's exposure to COVID-19 thus far has been relatively mild. As of June 28, Japan has confirmed 18,319 infections and 971 deaths. The Japanese government recently declared nationwide state of emergency, encouraging telework and social distancing practices to contain the spread of virus. While it may be too early to reach any definitive conclusion on the effectiveness of government policy, satellite imagery reveals a reduction of COVID-19. Next. Infection. Okay, Japanese Airlines stands to lose 1 trillion to coronavirus pandemic. The coronavirus pandemic could damage Japan's airlines industry to turn Japanese currency 1 trillion American dollar, 9.3 billion over the next 12 months, and estimated by Domestic Aviation Organization says. The Scheduled Airline Association of Japan forecasts carriers such as Japan Airlines and All Nippon Airways will lose over Japanese currency 400 billion yen in revenue in just the 4 months through May 2020. Yeah, much worse than the roughly 300 billion decline seen during the 2008 global financial crisis. The Japanese Association has taken government to exempt airlines from paying airport and charge and fuel tax. Next. Guideline. Next. Okay, China. COVID epidemic in China and airlines punishment. China's cautious reopening will see its punishment system for global airlines. If 5 passengers test positive for COVID-19 en route into China, the airline will have to suspend the flight for 1 week under the new Civil Aviation Authority of China rules effective June 8. If infections reach 10 passengers, the airlines will have to suspend the route for 4 weeks. Next. The COVID-19 epidemic first occurred in Wuhan, in China, on December 2019. This area was Wuhan. As of June 28, 2020, China has confirmed 83,500 infections and 4,634 deaths. Next. The more than 80,000 cases in China, total confirmed case coronavirus in country. Next. Case in China remain now daily confirmed case coronavirus in China. Next. Okay. China offers airline financial support amid COVID-19 outbreak. On March 4, 2020, China Ministry of Finance and Civil Aviation Administration of China jointly issued a notice on offering financial support to airlines amid the COVID-19 outbreak. As per the notice, direct cash incentive will be powered into supporting domestic foreign carriers which operate international flight to from China. According to the notice, both domestic and foreign airlines are eligible for funding based on conditions that they operate international flight in and out of mainland to China. Next, reward for continuous international operation. The notice also details the criteria for giving money by CAAC for the multiple stop flights and his freedom flights. The reward will be calculated based on the number of international flight segment involving Chinese destination. After epidemic, monetary subsidy will given to the carriers, air carriers performing major transportation task based on the actual cost confirmed by the intermediary agency. Next. Application review procedures. As required by notice, all qualified airlines shall submit their applications to the CAAC and the Ministry of Finance before 7th every month with relative document providing including first information about first air route, second flight frequency, third aircraft type, fourth available seat kilometers, huge inventory of materials, and their costs and revenue data. The result reviewed by the CAAC will report it to the Ministry of Finance for disbursement. Among the airlines, Air China, Chinese Eastern Airlines, and China Southern Airlines will directly receive funding from Ministry of Finance of Chinese government and other domestic airlines from the local government. CAAC shall take charge of allocation funds to foreign airlines. Next. Okay. Chinese release the length white paper chronicle COVID response. Mr. Xu, Lin Vice Head of Public Department Communist Party, shows a copy of length white paper fighting for COVID-19 in China during press press interview. Next. Okay, India. COVID-19 fight plan for Indian aviation industry. Severely impacted almost industry, but COVID disruption in the airline industry is so profound that it is assumed to be greater than combined crisis of 9/11 case and 2008 global financial crisis put together. Orders dated March 26, 2020 and April 14, 2020 directed inter area all aircraft operators to suspend the operation of all the domestic flight and all scheduled international commercial passenger service until May 3, 2020. The forward air travel booking are far outweighed by the cancellation. Next. As of July 99, 2020, India has conferred 767,296 infections and 8,958 deaths. Next. international partnership, India has been able to deliver medical supplies and assistance to Maldives, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan, and it is in the process of preparing packaging of medicine and other needed commodities for Nepal and Afghanistan. Medical commodities have also been provided not only to Myanmar and Seychelles, Mauritius in our extended neighborhood, but also Italy, Iran, and China at the height of the crisis in those countries. And keeping with the India's standing as major and responsible provider of pharmaceutical products to the world and commercial and aid supplies of key pharmaceutical products were made to the USA, Spain, Brazil, Israel, and Indonesia, as well as countries in Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean Sea. Next, conclusion. At this time, more importantly, urgently develop the excellent effectiveness vaccine that can cure perfectly the COVID-19 epidemic, and then we must liberate humankind from the fear of COVID epidemic. It is absolutely necessary and quickly for us to establish an Asian consultative organization for prevention and eradication of COVID-19 epidemic among the China, India, Japan, and the Republic of Korea, etc., in order to research and develop very high quality vaccines. Next. The purpose of establishment Asian consultative organization for the prevention and eradication of COVID-19 epidemic is to exchange information among the Asian countries for the prevention and complete treatment of the COVID-19 epidemic. The regulation for the Asian people entry into the other countries. If Asian countries government has, including China, India, Japan, and the Republic of Korea, would agree the establishment Asian Consultation Organization for the prevention and eradication of the COVID-19 epidemic in the upcoming summit conference in the near future. I am sure that this international organization will be established soon for the prevention and eradication COVID-19 epidemic in the near future. Next. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Vielen Dank.
Yeah, I thank you very much for your valuable presentation, Professor Du Huan Kim. I will continue to the fourth speaker, Professor Martono. Professor Martono is a professor at the Faculty of Law, Tarumanagara University. All students and lecturers at the law faculty know him very well. He plays important role in advising and supervising the young lecturers. He's very active in writing books, publication in national and international journals. He dedicates himself as a scientist at the scope of the air and space law. We will see the 50 minutes of video presentations of Professor Dr. Martono. After that, we listen to his opinions for 5 minutes, his remark. So please, the committee, Ms. Rian, can you play the video presentations of Professor Martono? Yeah, you may see the presentations of him.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, I do hope you and your family fine. it is my honor as a presenter in this event. First, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the famous professor, lecturer, researcher, and scientists who participate the international conference on COVID and aviation, global, regional, and nasional. Pertama-tama, saya ingin menyatakan penghargaan kepada para guru besar yang terkenal di dunia, dosen, peneliti, serta para cerdik pandai yang ikut serta dalam konferensi internasional COVID dan penerbangan global, regional, dan nasional. The international as well as national air transportation as part of aviation industry is very important. Taking into consideration that the development of air transport can greatly help to create and preserve friendship and understanding among nations and peoples of the world. In addition, air transport also creates jobs, support the international as well as national economic, foreign currency, tourism industry, territorial connectivity, United of States, mobilization of people, traveling for the business or pleasure, and other activities. However, as a result of COVID-19, the most suffer, except tourist industry, is the aviation industry in global, regional, national level. The aviation industry is completely crippled. For the purpose of recovering such aviation industry, the COVID-19 need contribution from world famous professor, as well as researcher, or any other international government organization, international private organization related to aviation industry in global, regional, as well as national level, based on available national international regulation. Transportasi udara internasional dan nasional merupakan bagian industri penerbangan sangat penting karena dapat membantu menciptakan persahabatan dan saling pengertian antar bangsa serta pergaulan dunia. Di samping itu, transportasi udara juga dapat menciptakan pekerjaan, menunjang ekonomi nasional maupun internasional, mendatangkan devisa negara, menunjang industri pariwisata, menghubungkan antar pulau dan mempererat kesatuan bangsa, menciptakan usaha wisata untuk berlibur maupun kepentingan lainnya. Tetapi industri penerbangan, kecuali pariwisata, yang paling menderita akibat COVID-19 pada tataran global, regional, nasional, sebab industri penerbangan hancur. Karena itu membutuhkan kontribusi para guru besar, dosen, peneliti, para cerdik pandai, maupun organisasi internasional berkenaan dengan industri penerbangan pada tataran global, regional, nasional, untuk memulihkan kembali industri penerbangan setelah COVID-19 berdasarkan regulasi nasional maupun internasional yang tersedia. The aim and objective of the Indonesian aviation industry is to build aviation industries capable to compete in national, regional, and global level to support the national economic development, distribution of goods, logistics, tourism industry, hotel, homestay, local product, movement of people, movement of employees belonging to business entities such as mining business, plant business, forest business, agriculture business, to support the offshore mining, traveling civil servant, business people, pleasure people, national defense, health embarkation as well as debarkation, connectivity between island of Indonesia, consistent with the national law and regulation, the applicable in international regulation, especially the safety of transportation, the post-COVID-19 based on the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, supported by available human social science, and is taken into consideration of organization under auspices of United Nations as special agency. Maksud dan tujuan industri penerbangan di Indonesia adalah membangun industri penerbangan yang mampu bersaing pada tataran nasional, regional, global, mendorong pertumbuhan ekonomi, distribusi barang, logistik, industri pariwisata, termasuk hotel, penginapan, produksi lokal, mobilitas karyawan perusahaan pertambangan, perkebunan, kehutanan, agrobisnis, mendukung eksplorasi minyak lepas pantai, mobilitas para pejabat, pengusaha, wisatawan, pertahanan nasional, embarkasi dan debarkasi haji udara, menghubungkan antar pulau sesuai dengan hukum nasional maupun internasional yang berlaku, terutama sekali berdasarkan keselamatan dan keamanan penerbangan setelah COVID-19 berdasarkan metode pengetahuan rekayasa dan teknologi yang didukung oleh ilmu humanira. To implement such aim and objective, have to review the existing best practice cabotage, liquid regime, route structure, and airline home base as well. In addition, all stakeholders such as government, airline state-owned as well as private state-owned, airport operator, state-owned enterprise, manufacturer, state enterprise, etc., have to work together in accordance with their own function, taking into consideration that we cannot work together, we cannot work alone. The function of the government, among others, to review the type of public services, ROM, Public Service Agency, PLU, limited company, related to function, size, right and obligation, subsidy, transfer of capital, facility, etc., and regulated all aviation activities based on Act number 1, such as supervision, all the aviation activities related to safety, security, airline, airport, manufacturer, vendors, air calibration, air transport policy, human resources, establishment of airline joint venture between airlines, protection of traveler related to airline, manufacturer, and vendors. Untuk melaksanakan maksud dan tujuan tersebut di atas, perlu tinjau ulang praktek yang ada sekarang ini seperti masalah kabotaj, struktur rute, dan pangkalan induk. Di samping itu, semua pemangku kepentingan seperti pemerintah, badan usaha milik negara, perusahaan penerbangan, operator bandar udara, pabrikan, institusi keuangan, dan lain-lainnya harus bekerja sama. Karena masalah industri penerbangan tidak dapat dikerjakan sendiri-sendiri. Pemerintah dapat meninjau kembali fungsi dan kewajiban badan usaha milik negara seperti PEROM, BLU, PT, apakah masih sesuai dengan fungsi dan tugasnya, termasuk subsidi berbentuk penyertaan modal atau berbentuk faster lainnya. Di samping itu, bandar berdasarkan Undang-Undang Nomor 1 Tahun 2009 pemerintah juga berhak mengatur semua industri penerbangan yang meliputi keselamatan keamanan penerbangan, perusahaan penerbangan, bandar udara, pabrikan, pemasok, tanggung jawab perusahaan penerbangan, kebijakan transportasi udara, sumber daya manusia, pembentukan kerjasama antar perusahaan penerbangan, perlindungan penumpang, dan berbagai kewenangan lainnya. Pemerintah dimaksudkan di sini termasuk juga kementerian yang lain. Airline state-owned enterprise also have to review its business function related to creation of new business, subsidy, leasing agreement, new aircraft order to the manufacturer, postponement of aircraft order, take-home pay, and no double function to save the budget. It is worthwhile to note here that parities of male and female, because gender in aviation industry cannot be disregarded into account the General Assembly resolution in 2018 provide that no discrimination treatment in aviation industry. With regard to air transportation, shall take it over related to local airline charter in nature to serve internal islands such as in Kalimantan or in West Papua, while offshore operation using helicopter to explore oil mining to support the national economy. Perusahaan penerbangan milik pemerintah harus tinjau ulang fungsinya sebagai badan usaha, menciptakan usaha baru yang relevan, subsidi pemerintah, perjanjian sewa guna usaha, meninjau ulang pesanan saudara yang baru dengan menunda atau membatalkan gaji pegawai, tidak ada jabatan rangkap untuk menghemat anggaran belanja. Perlu dicatat di sini, masalah penyetaraan pria dan wanita yang kita sebut gender harus memperhatikan resolusi dan umum Organisasi Penerbangan Sipil Internasional tahun 2016 yang melarang adanya diskriminasi dalam industri penerbangan. Mengenai transportasi udara di Indonesia sekarang ini perlu memikirkan kembali perusahaan penerbangan yang bersifat lokal seperti charter, seperti khusus di Kalimantan atau Papua, dan pengoperasian pesawat udara helikopter untuk tambang minyak lepas pantai untuk mendukung ekonomi nasional. Finally, the national aviation industry, especially after COVID, have to review the existing aviation industry related to the role of government, state-owned enterprise, airport operator state-owned enterprise, airline state-owned as well as private-owned enterprise, manufacturer state-owned enterprise, and work together between the Ministry of Communication and others with paying attention and recent attention provided by ICAO based on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics as guidance. Akhirnya industri penerbangan di Indonesia khususnya setelah COVID-19 harus ditinjau ulang, terutama peran pemerintah, badan usaha milik negara, operator bandar udara, perusahaan penerbangan milik pemerintah, pabrikan harus bekerja sama antar kementerian dan lainnya dengan memperhatikan ketentuan yang dikeluarkan oleh Organisasi Penerbangan Sipil Internasional berdasarkan metode pengetahuan rekayasa teknologi sebagai acuan. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you. Prof. Martono, do you want to deliver other presentations? Prof. Martono, no? So, yeah. We just listened to the bilingual presentation from Prof. Martono. Then we move forward to the fifth honorable speaker, Professor Anis Bakar Trafix. He is a former practitioner, MVA official and career diplomat, legal and political advisor of the CEE at the Vienna-based Political Academy. He is the IMC University of Australia as a professor and chairman for the International Law and Global Political Studies. I will invite the fifth speaker, the last speaker, Professor Dr. Anis Bakar Trafix, to express your opinions. Your time, 20 minutes is yours, Professor Anis. Committee, please, can you help me to check on the attendance list whether Professor Anis has attends attends the seminar?
Prof.
No?
Anis, yeah.
Okay.
No.
Up until now, Professor Anis has not able to join us in the international seminar webinar, even though he has sent the material and the essence to committee. So we're sorry for Professor Anis cannot join us at this time. After we listened to the fourth distinguished speaker, I wrap up from the materials that in order to overcome the pandemic, many countries makes new policy that are tailored to the safety passenger and overcome the financial problems. The ICAO has published guidelines for the safety and security of passengers and airline industry. So now I open the discussion sessions. First round, I will invite 5 people as respondents. Please raise your hand, and then the committee will help me to see which participant raised the hand. Mr. Jody, I believe, yeah?
Yes.
Yes. The first respondent is Mr. Jody, and then the second. The second respondent, please. While we wait for the second respondents, please, Mr. Jody, can you express your opinion, please?
Okay, good afternoon from Batu Licin, South Kalimantan, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here with the professors and all of the participants. I'm Joni Nugraha from John Lin Group. I'm an alumni of Law Faculty of Tarumanagara University. Professor Martono was my mentor when I do my research for my bachelor thesis about CAPCON Convention 2001 back at the time. Economic aspect of aviation industry is become one of my favorite topics after graduated from the university. COVID-19 saw us how weak the industry to face the uncertainty situation. I have 2 questions actually. First, why can the industry that have very high of capitals with so many professionals inside of it can be so weak when we face the situation like COVID-19? By so fast, and we can see that so many airlines are going to bankruptcy and also requesting bailout to help their financing. And we have so many other examples too. And the other question is, before the COVID-19 pandemic, we see that airlines have gained many profits from their operations. I took the example like in the only third of quarter of the last year, airlines in USA profit is reaching $4.6 billion. But all of the stakeholders took all the money and left the airlines with only small amount of the money to survive. So my question is it able for the regulators, maybe international, regional, or national regulators, to regulate the maximum percentage of the profit that can be taken by the shareholders, or make a minimum percentage of profit that cannot be taken by the shareholders, to make sure that the airline have enough money to going through the uncertainty condition like this? Thank you very much. That is my questions.
Yeah, for the second respondent, Dr. Ibnu Sina, please. Yeah, the committee, please unmute the speaker of Dr. Ibnu Sina because he has raised his hand. He will deliver the questions. Please, can you help me, the committee, Mas Rian? Boleh saya minta tolong di unmute Pak Ibnu?
Dr. Ibnu Sina can unmute themselves.
Oh, Dr. Ibnu Sina, please, you can do yourself to unmute your speaker because I just delivered the chance to you. You can unmute yourself, Dr. Sina. Can you do it by yourself? Yeah. Dr. Ibnu?
Unfortunately, Dr. Ibnu maybe have technical problem.
Okay, so we move to the third respondent, Mr. Jody. Yeah, please, Mr. Jody, you can unmute yourself and then you can raise your questions. You can deliver the question, please, Dr. Jody. Yeah, Mr. Jody, please. Yes, yeah.
I already say my question at the first time. It's me.
Oh, okay. So since Dr. Ibnu has a problem with the internet connections, I may give the floor to the honorable speaker to respond the questions from Mr. Jody. Probably Professor Weber first, and then continue to the Professor Stephen Hope. And then if Professor Du Huan Kim wants to add the informations, and then others, and then next to Professor Martono, please.
Fine. I'll be pleased to respond to the questions. I think question number one is, why is the airline industry weak, unable to deal with such a crisis? And the second question was, is it not possible that the regulators require that the profits be retained at least to a minimum degree in the airline in order to make their economic financial standing stronger?
Yeah,
I think these are very good questions, very, very good questions. And my answer to question number one is that airlines have actually been traditionally financially weak. This has been going on for many decades. And if you look at some of the profit margins of some of the airlines, you will see that the margins are in some cases very small, particularly when you look at carriers who are not traditionally close to government. I think one of the reasons for the financial weaknesses of the airlines is cutthroat competition. Cutthroat competition, there's strong competition among carriers, and the airline industry is a very capital intensive industry. So the two phenomena seen together, the cutthroat competition on the one hand and the capital intensive nature of this industry are, in my view, the main reasons why the industry is traditionally weak from a financial viewpoint. The second aspect, well, you're touching, I think, a very good point. Traditionally, of course, regulators have focused on safety regulation, have focused on security regulation, but the civil aviation administrations have usually not gone into requiring that a minimum of profits be retained. And maybe there should be some regulation, because you're right. In such a crisis, we can see how weak the airline industry from a financial viewpoint really is. They don't have what you might call proper reserve. They don't have proper reserve. Maybe they should, and maybe the regulators should take that into account. We had strong fallout from the financial crisis in 2008. A number of airlines actually did not make it at that time. We had strong fallout in previous crises, and maybe the regulators should consider this point in a more appropriate way. So those are my views, but perhaps other panelists, other speakers have other views.
So then I will jump in, if you permit.
Yes, please.
Okay. I very much share of many of Professor Weber's views. And I think I want to highlight the situation of the airline industry. I also congratulate the person who has asked these wonderful questions. You put your finger on very critical points. And I think it is exactly, and I know a little bit the situation here in my country, in Germany. It is really true that the profit margin for airlines, despite a very competitive environment, is very, very thin. It's a very capital. It's a very capital intensive industry that we have. And the airlines have a lot of costs to share. You see that many of them now in the crisis have grounded their airplanes, who sometimes don't, or in the more instances do not even belong to them, that they have they possess on a lease basis. The uncertain market for fuel. So there is a lot of risk. And then there is this worldwide competition. We have it even more so in Europe, which raises really fundamental questions. We have a kind of competition on the one hand from the low-cost business that is really a race to the bottom. Offer the passenger a seat for $5. That's the idea. And if you cannot do it because it's obviously not profitable, then we force you to do it. And of course, this is not made for airlines to be profitable at the end of the day. So they don't have huge savings. We do believe still that the free market is the solution, particularly in Europe, but this is unclear how long we can afford that. From the European point of view, there comes another problem. We do not have a worldwide competition law. So we are in the center of Europe, but we have huge competition partly from outside Europe, from the Middle East. Qatar, Bahrain, and these states heavily sponsor the aviation industry and fly and offer in competition to European carriers, routes that you should go. If you just think Frankfurt, South Africa, Frankfurt, Johannesburg, it is not necessary that you go to these Gulf states and via the Gulf states, but they force you to go there and then even make little shopping in these nice new airport halls. So in order, and they offer extremely cheap tickets. And of course, European carriers ask why. So at a worldwide scale, we seem to have the same problem. And although I'm a strong advocate for competition, I think that this perhaps also the American example teaches that there should be maybe some government impact as well, and that pure competition is maybe not too lively for airlines. Such package of competition could also include, and that comes to your second question, as Ludwig Weber has already mentioned, that there is a check when airlines are allowed to fly on their economic viability, and that there must have always a deposit of something, of a certain sum, that guarantees that situations like we have now cannot hurt that far. But this is all the future. So my kind of bitter resume is, conclusion is that the system of competition comes a bit to a critical phase here, and crisis, which always opens eyes for such situations, make this crisis, make this general crisis, make this general idea, make this general point of view more visible. Thank you.
Professor Du Huan Kim, do you want to respond?
I'd like to answer first question. Asian countries airline in China, Japan, South Korea, and India, most severe competition in this time, the coronavirus 19 COVID, but the airline, Asian countries airlines, not competition now because COVID-19, but airline, Korean airlines, two kinds of Korean airlines, big airlines too, and 8 airlines, low-cost airlines. In China also, low-cost airlines, big airlines. Japan has the big airlines, only Nippon Airways, big airlines, but low-cost airlines. But airlines must save the cost and saving expense. So the kindness for passenger. It is most important things for big airlines and airlines to win the coronavirus. And the second question is my view is airlines most very big difficulties to manage the airline management. But government, Chinese government, Korean government, Indian government must assist the subsidies to the airlines. And I hope that the three countries' government insist on the deregulation. It is most important things for airlines deregulation. It is my view. Okay, thank you.
Professor Martono, do you want to respond the questions from Mr. Jody?
Selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi.
Kurang begitu jelas pertanyaan, tolong dibantu pertanyaannya.
Ya, intinya bahwa Mr. Jody itu mengharap, jadi sebelum dari pandemik ini, airline itu sudah mempunyai profit yang besar sekali. Nah, begitu kena pandemik, tentu harus ada mekanisme dari international community untuk membuat satu regulasi bagaimana membuat standar minimum agar tidak seluruh profit diambil oleh perusahaannya, tetapi ada minimum standar dari internasional agar semua profit itu berapa persen ditinggalkan di industri. Begitu, Prof?
Baik, terima kasih. Kalau itu yang pertanyaan itu masalah internasional ya. Jadi saya kebetulan itu penjelasan masalah nasional. Jadi mungkin saya tidak perlu menanggapi itu karena pertanyaan itu yang dari aspek internasional. Saya kira demikian. Kalau saya itu ada paper saya itu adalah nasional. Sekian dan terima kasih.
Yeah. Baik. So I will try to translate what is the Professor Martono delivered message to us. That since Professor Martono role is giving the presentation at national view, so he will not answer the questions of Professor Mr. Jody. So I think we can move to the other respondents. Mas Rian, can you help me? Has Dr. Ibnu Sina joined the seminar?
Not yet, Miss.
Not yet.
Still technical problem.
Okay. Other respondent has raised
in meeting chat. There is a question from Ade Satya.
Yeah, can you read it, please?
Sorry?
Can you read? Bisa dibacakan, Mas?
Oh, okay. From Mr. Yeah. I asked question to Prof. Ludwig Weber. Yeah. How many points are there in the security plan in the COVID-19 pandemic situation adopted by ICAO? How many points are there in the security plan in the COVID-19 pandemic situation adopted by ICAO? Sorry if it might have been delivered, but I can't listen or see how it looks because of a bad signal. There is from Mr. Adesatya.
So how many points are regulated at the security
plan in the COVID-19 pandemic situation adopted by ICAO?
Thank you very much. So there is a question from Mr. Adesatya, and then the questions is directed to Professor Ludwig Weber. Are you able to listen to the question, Prof. Weber?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yes, I will try to answer the question, although the precise number of points covered, I do not have available at this time. But it is certain that the the CARD report covers, of course, the safety as well as the security situation in relation to COVID-19. And as I have mentioned, the CARD report covers this matter in two instances. The first instance concerns the recommendation to apply the safety management system in the way in which it applies to security matters. And we refer to this as security management system in any situation that is required by COVID-19. So this is the first recommendation that the CARD group has made to treat risks that are specific to security raised by COVID-19 situations, to treat those similar to situations that previously were covered under the straightforward SMS safety management system. And I have briefly explained what this implies, namely mitigation of risks and a systemic documented system to deal with risks. And the other instance where ICAO has dealt with the security aspects is in relation to the PDCA cycle. You recall that this is recommended to be applied by the ICAO handbook, document 10144. And here the recommendation is that cycle, PDCA cycle, also be applied to security risks that specifically relate to COVID-19. And of course, that recommendation is not addressed to operators, to airlines, but that recommendation is addressed to civil aviation administrations when they deal with security matters and security risks. I hope I have, at least to some extent, answered your question.
Thank you very much, Prof. Weber. So there are no questions and response from the listeners. So, so I will close the discussion sessions and I will continue to the next sessions. After we learn from the respected discussion and respondent, I will conclude that we are still in the midst of the pandemic. It is too early to conclude which country have been the most effective in managing the crisis. Nevertheless, all nations should hand in hand to recover the crisis. So on behalf of Tarumanagara University, I thank to the honorable discussion, Professor Ludwig Weber, Professor Do Hwan Kim, Professor Stephen Hopes, and then Professor Martono, and then all attendees for your contributions. I hope we stay healthy and prosperous. Have a wonderful day, and I pass to the host, Mr. Lewy, please.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vera. Now we are reaching the end of the event. Before we close the event, we'd like to invite all participants to uncover your camera's lens to take picture with us in a photo session for documentation purposes. The committee will organize the session. Mr. Rian, please.
Yes, please all participants to open the video. Okay, Mr. Levi.
Done?
Already done. So,
Okay. So this marks the end of our nice discussion this afternoon. I personally believe that it was a fruitful discussion, and I hope that all the participants find it the same way as I do. On behalf of Tarumanagara, I would like to pass our deepest gratitude to all the speakers, committee, and all the participants that have realized this event. Kindly be reminded that the recording of this event can be found on our official account at FH UNTAR Official. See you in the next event. Stay safe and stay productive. Thank you.
Again, yeah, no, we can't get.
Thank you, Prof. Wiber. Thank you, Prof. Du Hwan Kim. Thank you, Prof. Hope. Thank you, Prof. Martono. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu sudah berkesempatan hadir di acara seminar kita pada siang hari ini. Terima kasih. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, professors.
Well, thank you very much to you, and thank you for having organized it. Thank you, and have a good day.
You too,
Thank
Professor.
you, Prof. Weather, Prof. Hoop, and Prof. Tuhan. And have nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
your excellent international video seminar succeeding in this time. I hope that your Taruma University would more success to worldwide university famous become to the world. Okay, thank you very much for your kind attention.
Most welcome, Prof. Du.
Thank you.
thank you, Prof.
Okay, thank you. See you next. See you next
Thank you.
time.
See you next time.
See you soon.
Bye.
See you soon.
So,
Bye-bye.
Bye. I'm signing out.
Bye-bye.
Bye.